Hello!
Hello!
It's my catchphrase. So I've said it 3 times. That's how a catchphrase works. It's discussion time.
It's discussion time.
Yay.
What are we learning about today? Briney?
Briney. We're learning about learning.
About learning?
Because we sort of started having a discussion. This was supposed to start at 3 o'clock, but about half an hour ago we started having a discussion and then realised we should have been talking about it on camera because it was quite interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is probably a good place to start if you're pretty new to Contact as well, because it's about how to learn and effective and interesting ways of learning and different ways of learning. And
right.
That's what should make this quite interesting because we have quite different approaches to learning and how it works. So.
Well, and this is part of the reason that we started working on ballcontact.org, right? And why we are here at all having this discussion because we all learned from each other on contactjuggling.org originally. That was a huge influence on me at the time and now has become pretty much all of my friends, which are all contact jugglers. And then the problems, though, with the learning.
Yeah, I think what we want to kind of focus on looking at today are the different ways of learning that are around at the moment and what's maybe coming up and what's effective and maybe what's less effective, because one of the areas that we do agree about contact learning at the moment is definitely the classic technique of learning and teaching is pretty outdated now. And it's really starting to show its age and is not particularly effective.
Yeah, and it really hinders a lot of learning. But and both Briney and I have been doing tutorials online for a number of years now, and that's been interesting and to see how far that's taken everybody. And it's one of the probably the most notable things that I've ever done. Actually, it's the one thing I get. A lot of thank yous for because it's like, thank you for doing that, because so many of us are alone in our own city, just one of us being like, how do I do this thing?
I should probably hold my hand up and say, like, the first tutorials I did are terrible and weren't supposed to be tutorials. They were just like to fill in the space because there were the GIFs, but the GIFs weren't on the .org anymore, and so I just like, I'll just film some YouTube things. They're not really tutorials.
You say they're terrible. I loved those.
But
They're wonderful. Your Happy Ball one.
Yeah, it's true. The Happy Ball. That was quite fun. But then the ones that I'm actually proud of are not super good for learning off because they're maybe operating on a different level of teaching.
After you made those, I was like, I can't send anybody to your channel anymore.
It's been corrupted. But that kind of teaching stuff, what I was working off back then was definitely the classic style of teaching. And I mean, just to put that in perspective, like especially if you're new as well, you're probably being sent links to first lessons which are all learning the butterfly and learning hand transfers, palm to fingertip transfers, all that kind of stuff. That for me would be the kind of classic first lesson, first teaching thing, which I don't agree with.
Yeah, if you're in the world of contact juggling right away, that's true. How did you learn first?
But that way. I very much started out learning the butterfly as the move to learn, and I mean, we talked a little bit about it before with the definitions video, but it really was quite stifling for a long time. I mean, if we want to get into that like right away, of why don't we like the butterfly as a starting point?
Yeah, give her.
Well, I mean, from your point of view, what is it?
What is it from my point of view? The butterfly is difficult. It is so discouraging when people learn the butterfly right away because they can't do it. You know, I always make the joke like, oh, you thought you know the back of your hand. You know, you always say like, I know it like the back of my hand. Well, we don't really know the backs of our hands, and when we learn the butterfly, it's a whole new territory of like, what do you mean balancing something on the back of my hand? And you know, there are so many ways in which to learn contact juggling before that, learning balances in your palm, learning palm-to-palm transfers, learning palm-to-cradle transfers, and slowly understanding the backs of your hands over a period of 3 months. It's going to take you 3 months anyway to do a butterfly.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. There's like, when you're learning, it's really nice to have these kind of moments where something just clicks and works, and that's going to be one of the things that really pushes you forward.
Yeah.
And to get that with the butterfly takes ages, in the way that if someone's trying to do a chest roll, just like a nice kind of inside chest roll, they're probably going to get that in about maybe 10 attempts. If they've got a J9 ball and they know the kind of the good position. And then that's like that wow moment of like, oh, I just did something.
Satisfying.
Yeah. And to try and get that with the butterfly, which is an incredibly subtle move, takes so much longer. It's absolutely crazy that would be the first place. I see why it's the first place.
Yeah, Toma here, he says, I found the butterfly so cool the first time I saw it. That's
Exactly.
Right?
It's the mental takeaway that people had from, like, way back in the day from watching, maybe not seeing Michael Motion's actual show, because not many people saw that, but from seeing something like The Labyrinth, or that period.
It's a crystal, nothing more.
Yeah, the defining thing you took away was the multi-ball palm spinning and the butterfly. So obviously you're going to want to learn what you remembered, what you saw for the first time, and that's what it was. That was what was driving you towards it. And I think that's probably still why people are so interested in learning it now.
Yeah, no, and to be fair, it does connect everything. You know, you do a chest roll, and then you do a butterfly, and then you do a behind the neck roll, and then you do a butterfly, and then you do these arm rolls, and then you do a butterfly, and it as a sequencer, to start sequencing all of your moves together, it's gorgeous, and it like, never mind, like the move on its own is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. This is and this is kind of where I have been for quite a while, for most of the time. Like, I spent so long learning it, and then I never did it again, because I would treat it as a utility move, which is what I would consider. That's kind of like a magic term for things which aren't particularly showy, but they're very good for prepping you for the next thing, which is showy and visual and interesting. So using the butterfly as that utility move, so you come out with the chest roll, you bring it out here, it's not a big deal. But then to actually go back and think, it is a really lovely move, and it does deserve its space. It's overdone, and it's overdone in a slightly shonky way, because at its kind of purest form, it's a very difficult, complicated move. So that kind of gets forgotten about a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, in my Goldie show, I do 3 passes, 1, 2, 3 on each hand, and then that's it. Otherwise, it's a utility move. It's just like, okay, from here to here to here, and it's both. It's really useful, and it's beautiful, and it's difficult to learn. Yeah,
exactly. That's what we're saying. Like, as just a pure clunking transfer, boom, boom, that's a bit less difficult to learn. But that's not what's being taught as often. It's like, no, you have to do the full thing, and it's very complex. And
yeah, exactly. If you want to throw and catch from your cradle to your palm, that you can teach, and I do teach that as one of my first things. It's actually quite nice to start with that. But yeah, to break this down and be back and forth is, and it comes from James Ernest.
Yeah, so that's, it was the book that was written, it was the media that was available for many, many years.
The inspiration
was that.
And then we were all like, well, this has to be taught. We all want to know it. And to this day, like, I've decided to change my workshops entirely, and I teach a lot of back of the hand stuff, but I still squeeze a butterfly in at the end, just to be like, I know you want to learn it. We have to do it. Okay. But honestly, it's an appeasing part of my workshop. It's not because I think that should be part of my beginner's workshop.
Yeah.
I would prefer to teach a chest roll.
Oh, we got another comment as well. I like yours cups.
Thanks.
But yeah, so...
Hi, Andrew.
Hey. So yes, the other thing, so you're starting out, this is your first time kind of in contact, this is the first move that's kind of pushed your way and followed down. This is the first lesson. The other thing that kind of comes out of that, the results from that, is that everything looks the same and everything homogenizes for the first kind of year, 2 years even sometimes.
Butterfly, back.
Just these transfers, and there's no personality there and there's no exploration there. It is the same thing over and over again. Like, that's this other trap that you fall into because it's so complex and so dependent on little factors. You don't have the freedom to express it. When you get comfortable with it, you can do really interesting things, and like your crazy what's the VTG?
Vulcan Tech Gospel, yeah.
Taking all those ideas and
putting the poi theory,
putting these transfers onto that, like that's amazing and it's brilliantly exploratory and interesting. But you don't get to that stage for a long time of being comfortable.
It took me 15 years to get to that stage, and all of a sudden I was like, oh wow, there's so much freedom here, and there was so much space, and expanded my my ability to move my body so much more if it wasn't just this wall-playing butterfly all the time.
Yeah. So, kind of with that in mind, it's kind of easy for us then to say, well, this is not what you do, this is not what we want you to do. Like, again, like from the point of view of someone who's just starting out, so don't learn the butterfly first. What other options
What other options do you have? Well, I mean, that's why I started my body rolling theory.
Yeah.
Because the butterfly is taught first, and point to point.
Yes. Oh, yeah, I forgot to be annoyed about point to point. It's not all baby pants. It's, we have good things to say about things as well.
We're angry about the way contact tracking
Flash of fury
it's
about
not,
point to point as well.
No, but point to point is just, it's so difficult. And
quick glossary for point to point. Again, if people are watching for the first time, that's this idea that the way to control a roll is to be able to find a stall point, find another stall point, and roll between the two, and that's the way. So if you were learning this folding line, where the ball's coming along, and then you fold over, and then it goes along, and then you fold over, and then it goes along, like that. The way to learn that would be to learn inside elbow stall, flip it over, roll it down.
Yeah. Which is useful in the long term. But I would say that it's difficult, like you don't learn to ride a bicycle by learning how to stall and stand still on a bicycle first. You want to, kick off and roll, and that's how you get on a bicycle and as you're rolling. And that's what started sparking my tutorials with, beginner lessons like momentum gravity rolls and just learning how to roll it and grasp the ball, which I know Drew would probably have a problem with me teaching that, but I found that would be more efficient, and then eventually learning how to roll down to points and not grasping the ball afterwards.
This kind of sensitizing, like having the freedom AC/DC rolls, very much so.
Oh yeah, AC/DC.
Points A, C, D, and C. It's the easiest way to learn the chest roll because it avoids the troublesome armulet areas. I can't even remember. Those factual workshops were so long ago.
I thought it was just like rock and rolls, like my rock and rolls.
Yeah. So there's definitely this. Your sense, and that definitely inspired me as well in kind of taking like how I process like teaching these first kind of lessons as well, and coming out with making these rolls bigger. And you can learn this big stuff straight away. You don't need to be scared of body rolls. Like a chest roll isn't a difficult move.
No.
It's weird to say because it seems like it should be because it's so big, but if you've got 100 mil ball plus, you're not really going to struggle with it. I mean, you'll be ironing out the kinks for the rest of your life.
It's like a palm ISO, right?
Yeah.
It's like, it's you can do this for as long as you want, but it will take some time to be really smooth and controlled. But you're right. To actually just land one, I do that in my first class easy.
Yeah. So just not being afraid of taking it out. But so kind of bringing this back kind of into this topic there, it's like, how do you go about learning them? If we're saying don't look at first videos of butterflies, what options are there out there?
Well,
because we can caveat this with saying that which this is what sparks off our long discussion before, so hopefully we'll be able to stay laser focused this time. But we were saying that for multi-ball, you're in quite a good position because there's good teaching that exists.
You have a really good book.
There's a very good book. There's by Drew Batchelor's book, Multi-Ball Contact. There's the really good Ryan Mellor's 7 Days of Multi-Ball, which is an online... it's like you buy a password and you can look at all of these videos, which are incredibly detailed, very systematic approaches, which will kind of hold your hand from never having picked up a ball all the way through to very complex ideas.
Yeah.
So for multi-ball, like on that respect, it's really good. But
technically,
this is a thing that we also really need to stress, is that it's no good as just like saying this is how you learn, because there isn't a particular way to learn.
No, and you know, we kind of got in that tangent because like, why didn't anybody take multi-ball and interpret it into contemporary dance? Like multi-ball is, you know, what I call the multi-ball trolls, like this, where we're all sitting here staring at our balls being like, wow.
Well, I mean, that was the old image, and it has become different things as well, but the technical level increases kind of all the time, and you see these kind of very interesting technical developments, like Yorgos, like Pish and Kai, and these big numbers, and Moon in the big numbers.
But it's so difficult to put on a stage because you can't see it from that far. And whereas if you took this pyramid and danced with it, actually was a contemporary dancer and held it in your hand and rolled to the floor and back up, you know, we could explore. There's so much unexplored territory there. So.
This is pushing away into another discussion we're definitely going to be having another time, because it's really interesting.
But yeah, it's just, so the thing is, I find that the reason I'm bringing this up is because that world tends to, the technical tends to lack the play, and it's just can be holding your hand and being like, this is the only way, and it's just not the only way.
Yeah. So this is something which is quite kind of important to me, and from our discussions, I think this is kind of really important to you as well. It feels like, especially if you're coming into this completely afresh, completely new, it can feel a bit like there's a division in place, and there kind of is a division in place at the moment, and it's not helped by all these kind of long, like, arguments and essays and things about flow versus tech.
Right.
It's the versus which has this problem here. Like, there are these two completely different camps who are kind of opposed to each other.
Only at the extremes.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. But how it's written about as the extremes, and often it's talked about in the extremes as well. And it can be quite disparaging from both sides.
Yeah.
About the other side as well.
Yeah. And we can have a whole new discussion about that.
Because...
Stay tuned.
Oh, I thought we were going to solve it today.
Oh!
We're finally going to solve flow versus tech
once
and for all.
You and I, technically, we've solved it. You need both.
Yeah, that's the thing to take away from this. If we're talking about learning how to learn, is that you need to understand that you can draw from both sides quite happily.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there, which can be a different discussion. Yeah. But yeah, in the end... you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, exactly. If you define yourself entirely as a technical juggler, your learning will suffer if you're not prepared to allow yourself this creative space or this play space that's just doing what you're doing for the sake of it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you consider yourself purely a flow artist and you have no time for technical kind of practice and focus practice like that, you're going to suffer.
Yeah.
You really need to let these kind of ideas sort of become a bit more nebulous and sort of come together a little bit.
Yeah. Let go of either side.
Both sides, both ways.
Both sides, both ways. Yeah.
Spoken like a true technical juggler.
We were going to make that t-shirt, weren't we? So we were talking about resources and what resources are there. There is a small call out, although it's like, yes, thank you, no problem, Drew. We'll tell everybody about your book at any point in time. But there is a nebulous other one ball contact book that we've never seen, and I would really like to see. But that's where a lot of my inspiration came from, because I think Drew had just finished writing the one ball contact book.
Are you breaking any confidentiality by
No, I don't think so.
this?
But he had written something back then in 2006, and his work has really been why I am having this discussion.
Okay.
Because he was being like, let's do transfers with the ball and walk with them, and then see what you can do, and where does your body go? And I can't do it sitting on this high chair, but you know, like that. My EJC 2006 video has a little bit of his workshop where everybody's just being kind of weirdos, like with their ball, and it was Drew who inspired us all to be weirdos, and I really appreciated that point of view, because it's kind of the first step away from the butterfly or point-to-point contact stuff. And so I really like a point-to-point contact. I want to just say that was Greg Maldonado. A lot of his work came from or was part of the point-to-point contact, and that was a step away from the James.
Well, that's it. Yeah,
butterfly
we're
thing.
still seeing the evolution of this, and we're not going to say now that there is a particular way to do things, because there isn't a way to do things, because it's that idea that everyone's brain processes this stuff differently. Everyone's body processes this stuff differently.
Yeah, exactly. And some people have a background in dance, and then some people have never moved in their life. And so if you want to just like go and be a dancing weirdo, it's really awkward if you've never done anything but like be in an adult stand-up body. And
in the same way that someone with like a background in mathematics is going to come to like toss juggling and come up with sideswap, because that's how they're processing this stuff. And it's, you could never have one approach that would satisfy both of those groups.
That's incredible.
Yeah, exactly.
What? I was just throwing the balls, man. And it's wonderful, because it means that you can have conversations, and at the time there was no videos.
Yeah.
And we could have an online discussion, which is why these definitions can be helpful for communities who are trying to talk to each other, especially when there's one of us in every single city across the nation, and we can't talk to each other except for this wonderful internet thing.
Which is kind of becoming even more of a relevant resource all the time. This is, so right now, how do you learn the best way is to find someone who's proficient, who knows what they're doing, and just glom onto them and learn stuff.
Right.
Regardless of how effective their teaching is, or if they've thought about it, just the fact of having someone who's been there.
There are terrible ways to teach.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? And, I really was inspired by the tryout toys, Steer Play DVD back in the day, especially their body rolling and stuff. But I've never found the pinky flips to be useful.
Yeah, it's true.
And that kind of thing. And it's not to say, maybe it's just the way I learn, perhaps. And I was really inspired. That's the reason I learned behind the neck rolls, or around the neck rolls and stuff, was some gifts that they put out a long time ago. But some of those techniques never really worked for me and weren't really helpful.
Yeah. I think there's definitely a lot to be said for, I mean, we keep coming back to it, but we do kind of need to be moving away from those first lessons, those kind of classic butterfly and then the point-to-point, and we're kind of hammering that idea, but it isn't effective. Like, we've seen that it's not effective in the many people that we've taught, the many first workshops we've done where people have come away with an actual kind of little book of ideas of things that they can play with then and take and make their own.
Have you taken a beginner class in a while?
Have I taken or taught or...
Taken. Have you seen somebody else?
Oh, you
took mine.
Yeah.
Took my class. Okay. But you've already known that, like, it's the rolling techniques and the moving around techniques, somewhat inspired by Drew, somewhat inspired by my own learning. Unlike you, with you learning butterflies, I was pretty much on my own learning without anything except for a few videos, like Silver Paul and this kind of stuff. But they weren't teaching stuff, and I was just like, roll the ball on my arm and failing, but eventually, came up with some ways that it would actually stay on my arm.
Yeah.
Which was both good and terrible for various reasons, but that is where I started thinking about my techniques about rolling the rolling type of ideas, and the fact that rolling's not actually that hard.
No. It's a kind of trust thing with the ball and with yourself, and trusting that it's going to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it totally goes into this idea, which I think both of our... It's funny, because our teaching techniques are quite similar, even if our kind of views behind it are maybe slightly different. I feel like I'm slightly more on the technical, aspiring towards very good form as my kind of end goal, rather than... I don't know, how would you see...
Oh, yeah, well, that's a whole question of, like, what is good form hasn't really been defined yet either. Yeah. As a contact juggler, there are people who have taken, contemporary dance theory and put it on to juggling and saying, like, that's not good form and this isn't good form. But there isn't really ubiquitous idea about what is good form yet.
I would say that, at least in kind of within my brain, there kind of is.
Okay.
I think that there is like a platonic ideal of a chest roll.
Okay.
And I think that exists out there, and that if I'm really trying to focus on a chest roll, I'm aspiring towards that ideal.
Who is your inspiration? Who's doing the perfect chest roll?
Well, no, that's the thing. Like the platonic ideal of it is that it can't exist because it is the ideal.
Okay.
There's no one doing it, but you're getting closer to it.
You're getting closer to this ideal of a perfect chest roll.
Yeah, that for me is the good form example.
Because this was posed to me recently in my teaching.
Yes.
And I don't have an answer. I mean, there were some things like that. When we talked about it, there was no bumps.
Yeah.
There was a speed controller that was controlled.
It should always be under control.
Always be under control.
That's what Nick mentioned in his video as well, like his definition of contact being the ball is permanently under control.
It's permanently under control. And then that it had speed consistency. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an easy way to start. But there are ways you can break those rules as well that make it interesting if it's a dance or something like that. You speed up and slow down and that kind of thing. But there is, I guess, so you're saying that there's a plutonic solid for chest rolls.
There is an ideal form to strive towards, and the closer you get to it, the more successful it will be.
And it's a geometric perfection that you could mathematically...
I mean, there's a lot of other stuff going on with it as well, because the control elements may be less. I mean, that involves lots of like muscle control and muscle memory and stuff as well. But at its ideal, I mean, even think about like a palm circle, for example. That same kind of platonic ideal palm circle exists, palm circle isolation exists. And you're always getting closer to it.
Yeah.
The thing is, just practicing that stuff can be really good, but it also can be incredibly dry. It was Drew who inspired us all to be weirdos. This is probably quite... Platonic ideal of a chest roll. No bumps, speed control. The ideal is only a vanilla chest roll. Yes, indeed. The dance variations that Dawn mentions are what can make it wonderful. Yeah, that's totally the thing, is this ideal is purely like on a mechanical level. Everything else is the flavour and the interesting stuff that can be built out of that.
Right. Yeah, okay.
Well,
so this is one thing I was talking about recently, was there is the control of the ball where you have control over the ball and you're moving it. Or the ball is on top of you and you're rolling, you're underneath it.
Yes.
And this is a different way that I like to think about contact juggling, and a lot of what my stuff is inspired by can be like a drunken contact juggler, which can vary into some untechnical stuff if you're not careful, if you're not in control. But if you move under the ball, it brings some beautiful movement because you can follow the lead of the ball instead of having, mastery isn't absolute control over a thing. It's the dancing with it.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh no, totally. But that's once you have. I mean, mastery is tricky because again, it's if I'm talking about ideals, then it's by its very nature impossible to attain that. That's
funny. I would think that ideally that's what you would be going towards, would be mastery of an ideal.
But no, just because the ideal is this kind of, it's a concept.
Sure.
And it can never actually exist because there's no such thing as a perfect circle.
Right.
You make a joke about the Maynard Keenan band, but no. It can't exist because there'll always be an imperfection in the real world because that's just how the real world works.
Yeah.
So you're not actually trying to achieve that, but you're pushing yourself to be as close to it as possible.
Yeah, atomically.
Yeah.
Correct.
So tying that into what you were saying, the more you've internalized that, the more that all this other stuff just becomes second nature. So we had kind of a long chat beforehand about play and whether there's a playful element. No, not playful. Whether very technical juggling or contact can be play. And we kind of, I think, sort of agree that not really, no.
Scientific definitions that I've explored too much? No. And that would be because play needs to be for its own sake. And that it is an exploration, and so is an analytical, intellectual exploration. But the playfulness itself is devoid of self-consciousness and devoid of particular attaining any specific goals.
Yeah, this is the play itself.
Yeah, the play itself. And so if you're doing an analytical, goal-reaching, consciousness exploration of contact juggling, then you can't necessarily be playing. It can be fun, and there's definitely people who really like that in the juggling world. They're all freaking geeks, but but you know, it's not particularly my way. But that's also, and it's why there's this difference between the flow versus tech kind of arguments, because those two sides don't always meet.
Yeah,
but they need to be. They're really tied together.
That's it. It's like if you start. I mean, my thoughts about nomenclature are pretty clear out there, that definitions are so hard. Nailing down definitions of words is such a ridiculous pastime, and it just creates problems that I've kind of given up on that. And it's fine. It's like I see the use of them. I do see the use of them. But this flow versus tech thing is such a good example of why definitions can be such a bad idea. Because
but science! How do we do the science?
It's a search for these ideal things. Is the ideal that you're searching after an ideal play state? Or is the ideal the perfect form of all of these different techniques?
Oh God, it would be an ideal play state in which I've achieved all the perfect form of all of these states.
Exactly.
That would be ideal, right?
But that's in the middle. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's in the Venn diagram.
In the Venn diagram of everything, exactly.
So it's not verses. There's no verses involved there. It's like, it's not flow versus tech. It's how do these two things come together? Oh God, we're having a different discussion than we started.
So Thomas says here, he's like, I want to be perfectly balanced under the ball. And he's got some really wonderful explorations with this as well, where he actually is exploring balancing himself under the ball. Instead of like doing these long reaches, being like, I'm going to step and make sure that my balance is under the ball, and so that your center is under it at all times. And that actually is a wonderful form as well. It's not something that a lot of us have explored learning-wise.
Yeah. I can definitely see that.
Yeah. Does that include, like, and so is that part of good form? Do you need to be balanced, or can you be reaching? And where is it that learning is going? Where are we going with this conversation?
How to learn, I think, was the idea.
How to learn. Learning about learning about learning. How do we develop a pedagogy in the future in which it's easy for people to understand and is inspiring for people to learn?
Yeah.
Is really the question that I'd like to add. Like, I don't think we're going to answer it today.
No, but something that I would, like, one positive thing that we can definitely start putting together. This is, I think, one of the kind of side aims of what we're doing right now, of having discussions and having this community together. what I think would be like an incredibly useful thing to exist is when someone asks you, how do I learn concept? To be able to give them one link on the internet, one place to go where they can have a framework. Like, it doesn't have to be a complete framework. Yeah, one thing where people
what
can
about
go,
all the differences?
well, that's it. This starting point. That then, this is what we're talking about, this like branching tree idea. That there would be a central place, like a starting point that people can then expand from. These kind of skill tree, technology tree kind of strategy game ideas. And that's what doesn't really exist out there. It's like with multi-ball, it's dead easy because you can say, take these resources, take Drew's book, take Ryan's videos and watch them. There you go. But, I mean, you'll be able to find your own way through
I
that
have a
as
video
well.
too.
Yes, bodybuilding. Can people get that?
Yeah. You can go to my website and download it on PayPal. Not to say that Ball Contact isn't supposed to be my platform for selling things, but yeah.
But yeah, this is to some degree what this website, this Ball Contact, can become. Hopefully, is this central kind of hub for learning, where people can take these ideas and move with it, but at the same time we've got the space to have these discussions and to say that people learn differently and that you're going to come at this from different angles and get different things out of it.
Yeah.
That's the thing that needs to be stressed as well, is that if you're starting out and you're watching a tutorial and you're like, I can't get this, why can't I get this, and you're getting infuriated, that's fine. Just take a step back and learn something else, or something that you have mastered, something that's comfortable for you. Just take that and do it in different places. Or...
Well, how many people have we lost because of bad pedagogy?
Yeah.
Is
how
my
many
question,
people learned...
like, where are, like, there's so many people who come into it, and I'm sure there's a huge drop-off rate for any learning. If you're going to learn guitar, if you're, I'm going to do this thing, and then you, like, oh, wow, something else is shiny. But how many people have we lost because we don't actually know what we're doing as teachers?
Yeah, totally. Of course, the other thing to sort of stress about this is that, to some degree, it doesn't matter if you don't get good. It kind of feels bad for me to say, because I'm
all for it.
I do like the form. And
Be bad at stuff. Do it anyway.
Be aware that just to be aware of that as well, and to be happy with it, I think is. It is important for a lot of people as well, who just want to kind of mess around.
It's like my whole Instagram, like, look at me do something and fail! Oh!
But that's different. That's failing, but with a pursuit of something.
Sure, I am pursuing.
And it's fine to just want to do it because it's a bit fun, and like to be out in the park and to know a couple of things that you do and mess around with in the park. Like,
there's something in our culture that says that we have to be the best, and like that to pursue something is because we are going to be the most wonderful person, and we're going to create something absolutely new, and we're going to
be the best around,
break open new doors, and all this inspirational motivation stuff. And it's like, no, let's just do it because we like doing it.
Yeah, like that's totally a section of people who will want to learn, who should be aware that that's kind of fine as well.
It's a great experience.
Yeah.
I love the experience of contact juggling. No one should be without it.
Yes.
Everyone should be contact juggling.
Like there's a welcomeness within, just to be part of the community, even if you're not pushing technical boundaries and
that's what
being
I
the very best.
About .org, yeah.
This is the kind of made a post a bit ago where it's like everyone's voice is valid because everyone's bringing something to it and everyone has their own viewpoint about things.
Sure.
So the end goal of learning it can't be mastery because mastery is such a strange, vague thing off in the distance. So there's virtuosity, I suppose. Like, to become a virtuoso of anything is such an admirable thing.
Wouldn't Michael Motion be our virtuoso?
I think there's other virtuoso jugglers and performers out there. I think the pedagogy is so new, and the place that circus arts have in society is very different to music and dance.
Yeah.
And so that virtuosity level is going to be very different. But I think it is out there. I mean, you look at Gatto, like Anthony Gatto, and there's someone who was trained in a virtuoso way from the age of like 4 or 5.
3, I think. Yeah.
3. I mean, that's how you become a virtuoso. Like,
Pumpkin's gonna go there, right?
could be our first virtuoso.
We can make one.
I think that's called hot housing. That's going to be our next long-running video series. 7 Up.
Okay, but Anthony Gatto is...
Yeah, so that's an example of like virtuosity, which, I mean, that is kind of more attainable in that way. But it doesn't have to be the end goal, and you don't have to feel like if you're not pushing towards that, you're not contributing. I mean, there's this kind of... I'm throwing terms around today. There's this hyper-reality idea. This idea that... For
someone who hates nomenclature, you really like lots of words.
It's true. I don't just like vocabulary. I like specificity. The hyper-reality. So, if you're just starting out now, like, and the media you're exposed to, media you're used to, is Facebook and Instagram. What you're seeing there is just a constant stream of the new, exciting, incredible stuff that's happening. And it never stops when people are... This kind of hyper-reality being, that's not the real world. That's people who have filmed hours and hours and hours and hours to get like a little kind of 15-second video that they're going to throw up.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And that's like... I mean, it was bad enough when it was 12 videos you could download off contactjuggling.org. And that was it.
But I studied those, like, watched them over and over and over and over and over again. And now if I could watch a video through to the end, it'd be a miracle.
Yeah. And so, like, the level is definitely increasing as a result. Like, this is a good thing for innovation. But at the same time, the pressure of that is maddening. This is an entirely unrealistic view of how this
Why am I not doing matrices perfectly like Kyle Johnson right now?
Matrices.
Matrices, thank you.
Be specific.
Yeah.
You make me self-conscious now. But yeah, so I mean that's this other thing. It's like why we would learn and how our learning is because there's this view, this perceived view that you have to be at this level. You see it with like the kids doing Diablo and things. It's like when I started juggling, if someone was doing 3 high Diablo, that would stop a convention and people would come over and watch. And now, like, kids are doing, like, 5 low or something.
Yeah, I've definitely seen 7, I think. But, I mean, and for me right now, it's really interesting because, and I posted a thing on my Instagram, like, the reason to practice is the practice, because right now I'm regressing. I don't have the same capabilities as I did pre-pregnancy, and I am tired. And I have a whole new belly and giant boobs, and they are in my way, and they are beautiful and wonderful for what they are, but as far as like, I just spent 2 years in France in a studio with, my partner Toma, and was like, just exploring and discovering and getting to sort of like my peak performance, actually cleaning up my technique, and now I can't do any of that. I can barely find any of it, and I have to spend half an hour juggling right now takes all of my focus, and I have to have a nap afterwards. And it's like, no, okay, you're doing this not because you want to be the best contact juggler right now, it's because you love this.
Yeah, exactly.
And the practice in itself is a reminder of your body and a reminder of what you love. It's
really interesting, because it's, again, it's still learning in a way, but it's such a different type of learning.
Yeah.
It's interesting as well because it is very different to, say, a plateau, which, I mean, everyone will come across when they're learning, but it is actually dropping back again, and not for reasons kind of within your control, but you still have to work out how to
I
deal
have
with
to
this
navigate,
process.
exactly, and I think we deal with that with age, and I think we deal with that with different times in our life, and when we don't have time or we're busy. It's just a pause, and perhaps that's true. I don't know, actually, if it is just a pause. I don't know what's going to happen after I have a little pumpkin. It's going to be a totally different life, and that's fine. It's just I'm not going to have 6 hours of spare time. It's just not going to happen again, and that's fine. This is my choice, and it was definitely like intentional, and I'm excited, obviously.
Yeah.
But it is and it's actually something my yoga teacher was talking about, like. Because I am doing this prenatal class, and it's about 12 pregnant ladies in the class, and it's like, it's okay to feel like you're regressing. Your flexibility is being lost. Your balance is being lost. Your ability is not the same in this body than it was in the body before. And my body after birth will be a different body again.
But it's like you're saying, as your different mind states affect what's happening, you're going to be kind of proceeding with a completely different mind state as well.
Exactly.
So, I mean, this is going to be a whole different sort of learning going on, and it's going to entirely affect things in that way as well.
Yeah.
So,
I had a really wonderful session yesterday where I realized that a lot of my practice actually internalized. It's those plateaus. It's like sometimes you have a plateau, sometimes you actually put down the ball and you stop. And then I picked up the ball again, and all of a sudden a whole lot of new ideas came to me.
Yeah.
I won't be able to explore them to the full extent, but it was that moment of like actually stopping practicing can be an opener because you stop doing the repetitive drilling.
This could be a good essay topic for this week, is plateaus.
Plateaus?
I think because, especially if you're just starting out, that can be the thing which kills it for a lot of people. If it's your first time learning something out of school, and it's like, I'm going to learn a hobby, I'm going to learn a skill or a craft. When you hit that plateau, you're like, I can't actually learn anymore, can I? And then you stop. When actually, if you stay with it for another month or 2 months, or like a year, or however long some of these plateaus have been, but then you come back and it's all internalized, it's all become second nature, your brain has switched into a different mode, and then it's become it's become your second nature again.
New eyes.
Hold on, you're now, that plateau is now the base level, and you're ready to start up again.
Yeah.
And, learning is just a constant sequence of these.
And the other thing is like those beginner moves. It's like you have so much to learn, and you're like yeah, and then you're like, okay, I learned chest rolls and bridge rolls and behind the neck rolls. Now what do I do? And it's like
Make them look good.
Each will make them look good, but each of those steps is so much more difficult than those first. I'm gonna just learn 50 tricks.
Yeah, and of course the other thing is that if you're purely learning kind of from online resources, even from teachers, often what you'll be learning is the mechanics of the move. Really? Which is why I'm so happy with what we've already got on the site and what we've got coming up. Because we've got tutorials for the subtleties which come out of people, of jugglers having these plateaus.
Yeah.
And they're going like, oh wait, I'm doing that, and I've been doing this all along. And all those subtleties which don't really get spoken about very much, but that's often what's going to push you through to the next level. And
actually being in your body and learning where actually all the bases is in here. It's not your interaction with the ball. It's the how grounded are you, how balanced are you,
and making all that stuff second nature. There's all the really good like the brain scan experiments that they've done. Mysterious science people have done. But there's a kind of quite famous one with beatboxing, where they got someone who's been doing beatboxing for 6 months and someone who's been doing it for 6 years or longer than 6 years, and they show the level of brain activity in the person who's just starting out. They're doing the same thing, but the person who's starting out, their entire brain's kind of flashing all over the place. And then the veteran is this tiny little bit of the brain at the back that's doing the stuff. Because it's all completely internalized.
Oh, can you link to that?
I will try and find that and put it in the notes. It's true. It's like, how long did we spend like getting that chest roll kind of consistent and drilling it? And now if I like fudge a move, I'm just like, oh, just chest roll out of that, there we go, without a second thought.
Actually, one of my competitions that I want to run on Instagram soon is chest roll all the things. And it's like, what can you chest roll? And it's like, just take as many items as you can, like, okay, I'm going to take my prenatal vitamins and like, like, can I? No, just about. No, it's, it's like, it's really out of weight and out of sync and stuff like that, but like...
I really hope no one's listening to this on headphones right now, because there it is just exploded.
But like, can you chest roll? Can you chest roll a box? What can you do once you've hit that automation?
Yes.
Point, right?
Yeah, finding. Well, that's it. That's the plateau. You plateau, you internalize it, and then you go crazy with it. And it just explodes outwards with all these possibilities you didn't have before. From the discussion we had before, I think one really positive thing that we both took away is, instead of using the kind of slightly, like the terms that are getting a bit loaded now, like flow and like play, using this and practice and tech and things, using exploration. Because exploration goes through absolutely all of this.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're exploring on a more technical kind of Wes Peden, Renegade Labs, Teku style, or exploring on a much more free, kind of open, playful style.
Sure.
It's still exploring the spaces within what you're doing.
It all comes from awe and wonder.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what we really want.
And it's this idea that the more you learn, the more you have at your disposal, the more you can explore. And that can be like focusing down and exploring within patterns, or like looking outwards and seeing what else is affecting.
Yeah, but keeping that inspiration and that fire going so that the exploration continues to happen. Yeah. Even if you're at a plateau and you've put the ball down, that you're exploring a different path and somewhere else, and some, a dance or whatever you've decided, but that there's still that little fire that's burning.
Yeah. Which, and that's, I think, if there's anything to take away, it's like, with the learning, it is to do what's going to inspire you. I've always kind of found this, that there isn't really an easy move. When we're doing, because we're going to talk a bit about how to teach as well, something that I will never ever do is say that a move is difficult. It really annoys me if I watch a tutorial video and someone goes, oh, this is a difficult move. It's like, that's... You can say something requires extra kind of preparation, or you need to learn prerequisites beforehand.
Sometimes it's a bit validating after the fact. It's like, oh, I see you find that difficult.
But you tell the person afterwards.
Yeah, okay.
You're like, oh, by the way, that took me 3 years to learn, and you just did it in one lesson. Because if someone's passionate about something, they will learn it.
Yeah, it's true.
And it doesn't matter, there's no easy move, there's no difficult move, it's what you're encouraged to learn. It took me years to learn bloody 3-ball cascade because I didn't care about it.
Well, and it was the change in 5 balls, right? Like there was like 100 people in the world that did 5 balls before the invention of the internet. And then all of a sudden, there's probably 5,000 people who can do 5 balls now.
It's like morphological fields of resonance.
Yeah, exactly.
As soon as an idea exists in the world, that's actual kind of...
Oh yeah, I saw that guy did it. It looked easy. I can do that. It's like, now 5 balls is standard.
Yeah,
It used to be technical.
So, to not be disheartened because you're stuck trying to learn something, it's either that where you're learning from isn't giving you a full enough picture, or that that's not going to appeal to you, and maybe there's another way of going that's going to really fascinate you, and you can get stuck in that and come back to what you were stuck on before.
Right.
When it makes sense.
Right.
I think that's a huge thing as well, yeah.
So where do we go from here? We have 2 weeks in which we're going to try and encourage people discussing this, so you can discuss what we've discussed here, or anything. We'll be putting it on the forums.
Question.
What are we reaching for?
Well, for a start, I'd love lots of questions from people who are starting out. Because,
yes, if you're
it's
starting
been so long
out.
Since we started, and
you managed to get through our ramblings.
Which is unlikely, but good luck to you if you did. Of what we can provide and what we can help facilitate. We like the idea of getting this sort of skill tree off the ground. I think it's going to be
the
really
skill
good.
tree is going to be some work for the next while. In fact, it's not going to last just 2 weeks. It'll be a while.
But kind of getting ideas out there of what the basics are as well. Yeah, well, exactly. You know, Tomo has a very interesting thing about if you make a hard trick standardized, it stops being a hard trick. Yeah,
it's actually
it becomes
true.
the base.
Yeah.
But yes, you don't put the weights of expectation on it. But yeah, so we're
making the skill tree. We're taking questions. We are.
We have more of our tutorials coming this week as well.
One of our mission statements was to develop tutorials and develop a better pedagogy.
Yeah, which I think is definitely being called out for, because it exists right now offline in meat space. Because if you go to workspace, meat space is the future. I'm allowed to use cyberpunk.
Made of meat. I
I'm
love
allowed
that
to use
essay.
cyberpunk language. Yeah, like this stuff exists. If you go to conventions, if you like go to workshops, like all the stuff that's going on in Berlin at the moment, where it's just like I'm so jealous because it's like, oh, a dancer's
the
come along
catapults.
And, I want to be there and doing stuff with it. But yeah, people are doing this. It's
the
just
Renaissance
not online. It's just not out there. So yeah, people are working really hard.
Right, and the more people that we have connected to, the better we all get.
Yeah,
because there's that one person like Andre who shows up and is like, I'm going to take in all the information right now and transform it into my own blah blah blah.
Yeah. And
so
just kind of so these kind of next couple of weeks are going to be quite learning based. So everything's going to be sort of focused on how do we learn, why do we learn, how can we learn better, and then we're sort of going to talk a little bit about how to teach as well, so that we can start hopefully getting people away a little bit from this butterfly idea, because it's kind of a strong agenda on our part, which is supposed to be relatively agenda free, but I feel like we've justified that.
We have a few. What we're looking for, is newbies who are having questions and non-newbies who are answering questions, giving us tutorials, and we are looking to schedule tutorials up until the end of the year, really. I won't be able to do these discussions forever past the next 12 weeks, really. And I would like to start scheduling stuff in advance.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you have tutorials, please make them. If you have any idea on contact juggling at all, please send us the tutorial and we'll start scheduling it.
And like the more niche or particular to your style, kind of the better.
Yes.
Like Steve just came out with these fantastic tutorials. It's like no one's made a video about that, and he made really good videos, and then just linked us to them, and just do that.
I'm a big fan. Yeah.
Like if you think that there's something that you haven't seen out there, then just make it. There's no laws behind this. It's a community thing.
Or doing really well done stuff on stuff that has been done before. Also welcome. But yeah, it's like if you have any idea that you think that you want to discuss, we're totally open to having it. So send us all the things, and then if you have a question as a newbie, then we can ask, and then we can do call-outs for that specific tutorial as well. Yeah,
because chances are someone in the community is teaching or has thought about that really closely, and then we can just deal with it.
Exactly. So go to the forums. Start talking, see what you think about learning and teaching. Tell us what you think of our opinions. And
and if you think that the butterfly is the place to start, then tell us why. Like, tell us why that's a good pedagogy. Because
we've argued against it, but...
Yeah, exactly. Our opinions are our opinions.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a community-based project. Yeah. It's not just the Tom and I project. Briney.
I accept.
Yeah.
I respond.
I'm really confused about this. Who are you? What are you doing here? All right, friends. Thank you for watching very much, and welcome to our discussions. We will continue this on the forums. Have a lovely Tuesday.
Bye.